$113 billion at the time of writing. According to Forbes, Bernard Arnault is the richest person in the world. The chairman and CEO of fashion giant LVMH, Moët, Hennessy, Louis Vuitton, Arnault went from taking over his father's construction company to managing one of the planet's biggest conglomerates. Now 73 years old, Arnault was born Bernard Jean-Étienne Arnault on March 1949 in Roubaix, northern France. He went to school in Roubaix and Lille before studying engineering at the École Polytechnique in Paris, graduating in 1971. Bernard Arnault is a different kind of billionaire. He is known to be seen very little on mainstream and social media, unlike other billionaires such as Elon Musk and Bill Gates, who have a personal image around the world, apart from the image of their companies that they have built. This has something to do with Arnault's philosophy, which is to advertise his company rather than himself. This approach has been successful in promoting his luxury conglomerate, Louis Vuitton. Arnault is a highly influential figure in France and is often referred to as the wolf in Cashmere. He has acquired a Medici-like influence in the country. There is a saying in Paris, all roads lead to Bernard Arnault. He believes in rapid creativity and never stops his designers from thinking outside the box and trying crazy new ideas. He believes that putting any restrictions on the designers during the process of creativity would hamper their creativity. He thinks that the restrictions should come during the process of management, manufacturing, and production, where strict discipline and regimen should be applied so that the products that have been designed are produced optimally, efficiently, effectively, and within a certain given time. Once one of his designers, Christian Galliano, sent actors to a showbiz show wearing clothes made of newspapers. It was a crazy idea and was castigated from all corners. However, it led to the whole world seeing that Louis Vuitton had designed and produced hugely popular, newspaper-like looking clothes. And this product sold like hotcakes around the world. Bernard Arnault reminisces about this incident and says that if he had stopped his designer from sending those actresses wearing newspaper clothes to their show, the newspaper-like looking clothes product would never have come to the market, and it would have cost a lot of profit to the Louis Vuitton conglomerate. In this domain, he is not alone. All creative people are disorganized, at least during the stage of thinking of new ideas. However, the mistake that people make is that they try to organize the creativity process. If you look at writers, or so to speak, bad writers, they start editing too early. Poor directors start editing too early, and they do not let their imaginations run wild. So the best that they come up with is mundane, routine, and ordinary. To allow the human mind to bring out new things, we need to allow our minds to go wild and try new, crazy, and bizarre things. Of course, we can later polish the rough edges of such creative products, but the process of creativity itself must be decentralized, disorganized, free, and unrestricted. However, Bernard Arnault does not try to deprive the whole process of creativity from managerial suggestions and proposals. But he believes that those suggestions cannot and should not be too specific to prevent the artist from coming up with different things on his own. In one of his interviews in the Harvard Business Review in 2000, he recounts an interesting example of how he proposed something to one of his artists without making it too specific, fearing that it might prevent the artist from using his own imagination. Not long ago, I said to one of our designers, "Why don't you take a trip to Japan and see what the teenage girls are wearing on the streets at night?" These girls are very leading edge in fashion. They create trends years before they hit the mainstream, like with those very high shoes, and it makes very good sense to watch them. I did not say to the designer, "Go and see what kinds of shoes they are wearing and copy them," although I was hoping he would notice their shoes. I just suggested, "Go look." And in fact, he came home very inspired. That's all a manager can hope to do, or should do, in my opinion. Arnault's father, Jean Léon, owned a civil engineering company called Ferret Savinel. After graduating from the École Polytechnique, Arnault started working for the company as an engineer, and within 3 years, he turned the business's focus to real estate under the new name Farinel. He quickly became the company director and president, replacing his father by the time he was 30. In 1984, Arnault left Farinel and bought the near-bankrupt textile company Boussac, stripping all its assets apart from the department store, Bon Marché, and fashion house Christian Dior. In interviews, he's described his mother, Marie-Joseph Savinel, as having an obsession with Dior while he was growing up. In 1987, Arnault founded LVMH, overseeing the merger between luxury houses Moët, Hennessy, and Louis Vuitton. Backed by the Irish brewers Guinness, Arnault became LVMH's biggest shareholder, taking over the company as chairman and CEO just 2 years later. The key to LVMH's success has been its first-mover advantage, notably in China, where Arnault is given a head-of-state's welcome when he visits, spirited through the traffic in a motorcade. In 1992, as China was starting to open up under Deng Xiaoping's market economy reforms, Louis Vuitton opened a store in Beijing, its first in mainland China, in the basement of the Palace Hotel, now the Peninsula Beijing. There was no hot water in the hotel and bicycles on the roads, rather than cars, Arnault recalls as our starters are whisked away. But he took the view that it's good to start. He adds, "We are the first, but eventually there will be a market." Arnault quickly expanded LVMH with a series of luxury acquisitions, which he deliberately kept separate from the parent group. Celine in 1988, Berluti and Kenzo in 1993, perfumer Guerlain in 1994, Loewe in 1996, Marc Jacobs and cosmetics department store Sephora in 1997, Thomas Pink in 1999, Emilio Pucci in 2000, and Fendi DKNY and French department store La Samaritain in 2000 and 2001. There have been a few surprises among the luxury brands in Arnault's buying sprees. When he bought Berluti and Kenzo in 1993, he also bought the French newspaper La Tribune. He sold it, then snapped up financial newspaper Les Echos and daily newspaper Le Parisien. In 1999, Arnault began what the New York Post described as the bloodiest fight in fashion, a creeping takeover bid for Gucci. When his shares topped 34%, Gucci retaliated by creating an employee stock option plan to dilute his stake. Gucci then sold out to Francois Pinault's PPR, now Kering, for $292 billion, the equivalent of over $5 billion in today's money. Arnault took the case to court but lost. I reflect that it has been almost 20 years since Arnault's biggest defeat, when Francois Pinault emerged victorious against him in a long-running and acrimonious battle for control of Gucci. Does the missed acquisition opportunity still grate, especially given how successful Gucci has been under the Pinault family's ownership? "I hate the past," says Arnault deadpan. "What interests me is the future. Have a chocolate." Arnault remained Dior's biggest individual shareholder until 2017, when he announced a $13.1 billion deal to acquire Christian Dior and fold it into LVMH. This purchase made him Europe's wealthiest man. In late 2018, LVMH announced that it had acquired luxury hotel, train, and river cruise company Bellman for $3.2 billion. Bellman, formerly known as Orient Express, was established more than 40 years ago with the acquisition of Hotel Cipriani in Venice and has a portfolio of 46 hotels, restaurants, and rail and river cruise experiences. Bernard Arnault, also known as the Pope of Luxury, has accumulated all his wealth through his luxury brands. Although it may seem strange that he is a billionaire, unlike other billionaires who are mostly tech giants building products that cater to people's needs, he claims that he can generate desires in people and ultimately turn those desires into needs by producing quality products. This tells us something about human nature, as humans are often driven by desires, mistaking them for needs. The scale of Bernard Arnault's business lies in capitalizing on this aspect of human nature to build a profitable business in which he is unmatched. This gives us an applicable lesson that any business must understand its audience's needs, desires, and wants. Another important aspect of Bernard Arnault's success is his belief in his designers rather than his audience. While he does consider product surveys and market analysis, he does not rely on them during product launches. The only two things he focuses on are creativity and quality. Once he has ensured creativity, he focuses entirely on quality. The production process of his products involves multifarious steps to ensure quality, and these products are compared with similar products from other brands and tested under various tests of duress for durability. He famously said that if you look at the process of testing his bags, you would be surprised. They are thrown around for more than many weeks, tested for durability, and only then launched into the market. His confidence in his designers may also be taken as a distrust in his audience. but it has worked for him for over 3 decades, and it is something that we can all take as a lesson from his business strategy. Writers who pander to the desires of the public often fail to produce quality work. Even if they do produce a product that is largely liked by the public, they restrict their own desires from turning into their final product. They might even fail to recognize the final product that they have produced because they have diluted their own genius to the degree where the desire of the public is so much infused into their product that they have lost their originality. It is because of this confidence in creativity and the ultimate belief that the audience will come around to liking their product that Louis Vuitton is able to put a premium price on its products, unlike its rival brands. Some companies are very marketing driven. They follow the consumer and they succeed with that strategy. They go out, they test what people want, and then they make it. But that approach has nothing to do with innovation, which is the ultimate driver, we believe, of growth and profitability. You can't charge a premium price for giving people what they expect, and you won't ever have breakout products that way. The kinds of products that people line up around the block for. We have those, but only because we give our artists freedom. About market tests, he says, but these tests will never tell you if a product is going to be a worldwide success. Take J'adore, the fragrance we released in 1999. Nothing in the test suggested what would happen. The people in the focus group said it was fine, just that. But look what happened. According to our estimates, it was among the top 3 best-selling perfumes in the world last year. I just heard that many movie studios now show the endings of films to audiences, and they change them according to the audience's reactions. So movies end up being a marketer's dream, not an artist's. In the domain of investments, Bernard Arnault is a huge fan of Warren Buffett and has publicly appreciated his genius. Arnault believes that the key to successful investing is patience, and that many people make the mistake of buying a product when its price is high and then panic when its price goes low, selling it in a hurry. In contrast, an intelligent investor buys when the price is low and holds the product until its price rises and becomes profitable. If you look at the business history of Bernard Arnault, including his very first enterprise, you can recognize his genius in investment. The first group he invested in was Christian Dior, which was a textile group facing huge financial difficulties. Despite its lack of profitability at the time, Arnault saw its potential and invested in Christian Dior by buying its shares. With his expertise, he turned the whole brand around and made it a huge success. Around 1971, he visited the US for the first time and spotted the power a luxury brand could have. He asked a New York taxi driver what he knew of France. He could not name the president, but he knew Dior. Arnault often recounts. The story stuck in his mind.
So he was talking about that. Said, you love France, so what do you know of France? Do you know the French president? It was Mr. Pompidou at the time. Nobody here remembers. But he said, no, I don't know the French president, but I know Christian Dior. And immediately, it struck me and showed that the name of Christian Dior is one of the, if not the most known all over the world in many countries. When I go to China, when I go everywhere, it's the name which is the most well known. So, as far back as 71, I understood the power of the name.
Years later, in 1984, he lobbied the French government to let him take control of a near-bankrupt textile company, Boussac. It owned a jewel that he wanted, Christian Dior. Arnault bought Boussac for a symbolic £1, having assured the government that jobs would be preserved. Within 5 years, he had sold off most of its assets, keeping Dior. The government looked on, powerless, as he fired around 8,000 workers, bringing a new Anglo-Saxon ruthlessness to the genteel world of 1980s French business. It was Arnault's takeover of LVMH in 1989 that confirmed his course. He engineered a majority stake in the group, itself the product of a merger between fashion house Louis Vuitton and champagne and cognac producer Moët Hennessy, and then ousted the Louis Vuitton president Henri Racamaille from his family company. Arnault would deploy the same playbook of ousting founders, dividing families, or driving a wedge between business partners with other acquisitions such as Givenchy, Chateau d'Yquem, and duty-free shoppers. Only rarely has this strategy failed, most notably at luxury brands Gucci and Hermes, although Arnault still made hundreds of millions of euros from each attempt. The Dumas family, owners of Hermes, successfully went to court to prevent LVMH from mounting a takeover. I suggest to Arnault that some would call him a predator. I do not know, he says nonchalantly. He's clearly well aware of his reputation. You do not expect them to say nice things if they are competitors. It goes without saying that LVMH is a huge success. Following the high-profile acquisition of luxury jeweler Tiffany & Co. in January 2021, the conglomerate is now the most valuable company in Europe and currently comprises 75 brands, including Rihanna's Fenty Beauty line. Arnault says he was heavily criticized for putting so many brands into one group, but that competitors now try to imitate the model, which is very rewarding for us. I always like being number one, Arnault says simply. I did not succeed at the piano. I did not succeed at tennis. I consider that success is to arrive at a point where all my teams, the group is the number one in the world. He adds without irony, we are still small. We're just getting started. This is very fun. We are number one, but we can go further. David Ogilvy famously said that through advertising, you cannot create value in a product, but you can only communicate its value to the audience. Similarly, Bernard Arnault believes that instead of relying on advertising, you should trust your designers. One example of this approach was the spectacle by Christian Galliano, which was an effort to test the audience's pulse. Arnault also believes that the advertising team should not be separate from the designing and production team, because the best advertising of a product can be done by the team that designed and produced it. They know the product inside out and know how to portray it to the public, highlighting the aspects of it that would be most appealing to the audience. This approach to advertising is very different and out of the box compared to the advertising approaches of other big businesses. Arnault also believes that advertising should not be too open and shameless, but rather subtle. Instead of branding a product, it should advertise the brand itself. This is evident in Louis Vuitton products, where the product itself is not heavily advertised, but the brand is advertised to the degree where the product is unmistakably associated with Louis Vuitton. This approach is all about building the legacy of a brand that becomes unmistakable and readily recognizable by the relevant audience. In 1973, Arnault married Anne de Wavrin. They have 2 children, Delphine and Antoine. In 1990, Arnault married his second wife, Hélène Mercier, a French-Canadian concert pianist. The couple now lives in Paris's Left Bank. From the second marriage, Arnault has 3 sons, Alexandre, Frédéric, and Jean. 4 of Arnault's 5 children have entered the world of LVMH. Antoine is chairman of Loro Piana, chief executive of Berluti, and chief executive of the family's holding company, Christian Dior Sets. Delphine is a director and executive vice president at Louis Vuitton, and it was announced this month that she'll become the new head and CEO of Dior as of 1st February. Meanwhile, Alexandra is president and chief executive of Remawa, and his brother Frederick became strategy and digital director at luxury watchmaker Tag Heuer in 2018. Demonstrating Arnault's philanthropic side, LVMH pledged $224 million to a fund to restore Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral after a devastating fire ripped through the 850-year-old church in April 2019. LVMH called its donation a show of solidarity with this national tragedy. The extraordinary journey of Bernard Arnault, from inheriting a small construction company to becoming the world's wealthiest individual, offers innumerable lessons on leadership, business, and the art of building an empire. Here's a refined script with leadership insights gleaned from his life. Stay behind the curtain. In a world saturated with CEOs and founders who seek the spotlight, Bernard Arnault has always remained somewhat enigmatic, choosing to promote his brand rather than his personal image. This underscores the importance of humility in the understanding that a brand or business can sometimes speak louder than individual personalities. Foster creativity. Arnault's philosophy of encouraging his designers to think without boundaries reveals the importance of creating an environment where creativity thrives. By doing so, he has managed to continuously innovate and stay ahead of competitors. Know when to intervene. While Arnault believes in giving creative freedom, he also knows when to step in and provide direction. This delicate balance between freedom and guidance is crucial for leaders to master. Decentralized creativity, the lesson of not over-organizing the creative process, serves as a reminder that innovation often flourishes in spaces free from constraints. The power of patience, becoming company president by 30 and transforming a business from its core, Arnault demonstrated that with patience and strategic thinking, young leaders can bring about transformative change. Strategic acquisitions. Arnault's prowess in identifying and acquiring brands is legendary. By keeping brands separate yet under the umbrella of LVMH, he showed the importance of preserving brand identity while benefiting from economies of scale. Understand the market, but trust the craft. While market research can provide insights, Arnault's belief in his designers and their creative processes emphasizes the idea that true innovation often comes from trusting one's instincts and expertise. Turn desires into needs. Arnault's ability to tap into human desires and then create products that cater to those desires teaches us that understanding human psychology can be a powerful business tool. Quality over everything. Arnault's focus on quality, from creative ideas to the final product, underscores the idea that long-term brand loyalty and premium pricing come from delivering unparalleled value. Intelligent investment. Arnault's investment strategies echo the principles of some of the world's greatest investors. Buy when others are fearful, see the potential others miss, and always think long-term. Learn from failures. Even after losing battles such as the one for Gucci, Arnault's philosophy of focusing on the future rather than dwelling on the past serves as a lesson in resilience and forward thinking. In conclusion, Bernard Arnault's life serves as a masterclass in leadership. His journey from the streets of Roubaix to the pinnacle of the fashion world offers invaluable insights on creativity, strategy, resilience, and the art of building and leading a global empire.